Hello, I'm Sarah Benwell, the digital editor of Engaged Investor and Pensions Insight magazines. I'm here with Paul Craven, behavioural economist and founder of Paul Craven Partners. Hi Paul, thanks for joining me. I've just come out of your session. It was really interesting, I thought. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned the concept of an elephant and a rider and the conscious and the unconscious. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was Jonathan Haidt's insight into how to use a metaphor to explain the power of the conscious mind, and that's the rider, and the power of the unconscious mind, that's the elephant. And essentially, we all like to think of ourselves as being the rider. We're in control, aren't we? We can see into the distance, we can plan our strategy, we know which way we're going. But the problem comes if we want to go this way, and the elephant wants to go this way, which way do you think we're going to go?
Yeah.
The elephant tends to win. And so this metaphor really is to show the power of the unconscious. And then people say, well, hang on a second, I'm in control of my unconscious. And to which my response would be, well, why do you bite your fingernails then? Or why do you smoke cigarettes? Or because we often do things that are not necessarily the rational thing to do, because of this unconscious power. And where it's relevant, of course, in our lives, our roles, our responsibilities, our workplace, is the fact that that unconscious is there the whole time. And it's very powerful, and even though we think we're in control, often there are biases that we might have. We make mental shortcuts called heuristics. We go from A to E, sometimes missing out B, C, and D, and we have to be aware of them. Mm-hmm. You can't really control that elephant perfectly, but just being aware that there's an elephant there, your unconscious is a powerful thing, helps you to become aware of some of your biases, and that's a great start.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you talked a little bit about nudging as well. So nudging, is that taking advantage of that unconscious and those behavioural biases to get the results we want? Is that something that pension schemes should be thinking about?
Yeah, the concept of nudging is really about persuading someone to do something softly, and so that they don't feel they're being hammered to do something. So rather than be told you must do this, you nudge someone to do the right thing. And Richard Taylor wrote a wonderful book about it with a colleague, Cass Dunstein, a few years ago, called Nudge, and talks about the way you can benefit society by helping people make the right decisions. Now, in our industry, for example, we've already adopted this in DC pensions. By moving to auto-enrolment, you're nudging people to take up a pension. In the old days, when you had to opt into a pension, it actually felt a bit like the way we, in this country, apply for organ donation. You had to opt in to be an organ donor. And in the organ donation terms, I think it's about 20% of organ donors. In other countries, you have to opt out of being an organ donor. So the nudge is you will be an organ donor unless you tick this box. And they have organ donation rates of about 90% plus. So back to the world of pensions, what's happened since we introduced auto-enrolment, going from opt-in to opt-out, guess what? The percentage of people having pensions has gone up a lot. That's good for society, good for them. So nudging's about helping people. It's not about some sort of mind control. And it's a very effective way of doing it. And they've tried it with taxes, with insulation, lots of ways you can help people to make the right decision for the benefit of themselves and for society.
That makes sense to me. And so I guess, it's understanding those behavioural economics bits and then using them to better your communications. And I mean, a lot of our audience will have a lot of experience in economics, but perhaps not very much experience in behavioural economics. Could you maybe talk a little bit about how they fit together?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So actually, I would first of all challenge the question. I think your audience will have a lot greater experience of behavioural economics because it's about real people doing real things in the real world. My problem with traditional economics, or classical economics if you like, it's a very good place to start. But a lot of it is based on assumptions that human beings are maximisers. And the work of people like the great Herb Simon proved that actually, in many cases, human beings aren't maximisers. We're not always wanting to be the really best or have the finest solution. What's what satisfies us. We're very happy if something's satisfactory and sufficient. Sure. And that's the first point to make. The second point to make is that a lot of economics is based on the idea that markets are efficient because human beings make rational, conscious, analytical decisions all the time. And I think that the history of financial market bubbles, for example, and goodness me, we've had a few in my lifetime. We had the tech bubble in the 90s, we had the US property market bubble in the early 2000s. Says to me, no, stop. If markets were really efficient, if human beings were really rational all the time, you wouldn't have bubbles. But we have had them. And of course, that reflects a bias called the bandwagon effect, the idea other people are doing something, prices are going up, I want to join quickly, and everyone piles on board. And unfortunately, a lot of the stocks, for example, in the tech bubble that went up so strong in the late 90s, came crashing down again a few years later. So we need to be aware. So I think economics is a good place to start, some ideas, but it has some flaws in it.
Sure.
Some assumptive flaws. And I think what behavioural economics does, behavioural science, and some people say behavioural finance, it tries to say, well, how do human beings really behave in certain circumstances? And that's why I think it's a joyous subject to know about. It's about real people in the real world, but it can really help our businesses, whether we're investors, whether we're in the pensions market, whatever we do, sales, understanding how the human mind works a bit better, and understanding how our clients' minds work is a helpful way of making things go well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.